All right, guys. Hot Take Hockey back with another video. Talking with my buddy here, Riley Ecott. Worked together at the Bulldogs OHL. Just big hockey guy, big Sabres guy. But just across the board, we're always talking hockey. So I thought we'd have that discussion, starting with the Sabres. Obviously, a huge discussion for me is that I was kind of just frustrated on behalf of Sabres fans for the Ryan McLeod trade. I was really high on SAVOIE. I thought certain guys coming in, SAVOIE, Benson, just the new wave of the Sabres. So that was kind of my lens. But honestly, bringing on Riley and obviously talking with their Sabres fans, we want to look at the positive perspective, but also, and I've kind of been like nailing this conversation, is that if you make a move like this to really solidify a position in need, I think you have to go for it this season, which I think a lot of Sabres fans would agree. You have to go for a top six forward. So Riley, talk about your perspective on the Ryan McLeod trade, and then just in general, kind of what I just talked about, like the Sabres direction here for Kevin Adams to be in good, I would say, grace with Sabres fans.
Oh, it's gonna take a lot for Kevin Adams to be in the good graces of Sabres fans right now, especially with big YouTubers like Hot Take Hockey getting pissed. You were pretty pissed about the McLeod trade
Oh,
because
man, it
you're
was
very high on
shocking.
SAVOIE.
Yeah.
All of Twitter was high on SAVOIE like as soon as he got traded to Edmonton, which I guess makes sense. It's a Canadian team. Everybody gets hyped about a Canadian team having a decent prospect, but I mean, I'm like biased. Like when I was pissed that Savoy didn't make the World Juniors 2 years ago. I was like, how is this possible? And then last year he made the World Juniors. He didn't do very well. I mean, Team Canada in general didn't do very well, but he was really put in a position to do well and run with it, and he did not do well at all. Obviously in the WHL he did great. But when you look at like what the Sabres got back, McLeod, you a lot of people tend to compare him to Middlestat, which is like fine if you want to compare like, oh, our 3C last year was Middlestat and this year it's McLeod. Well, we had three centers that last year you want to have offensive zone starts. If you look at like Colorado, they're deploying them in the offensive zone, and to be honest, like I would love to have Middlestat. I'd love to put him in the offensive zone, but that's just not what we need right now. We need guys like McLeod who you can feel safe. I don't know if you've seen like some of his hockey viz cards and stuff like that, but he's one of the best defensive centers in the league. So we need those guys who you can put in the defensive zone, who we haven't had for years. Like we've had Dylan Cousins as our matchup center, and you look at last year, like, oh, he had a down year. Well, he's shutting down top lines all year, so it's tough for him. So bringing in McLeod not only like shores up our defense, but it also allows guys like Cousins and Thompson who shouldn't have got as many defensive zone starts. They'll be able to give those D zone starts to McLeod and Lafferty, the fourth line, and they'll be able to hopefully thrive. So I think there's so many layers to how McLeod helps the team, and there's also so many layers to like, okay, yeah, we gave up SAVOIE, but where look at our depth chart in 2 years. Where's SAVOIE? Are you kicking Jack Quinn off the second line? Are you kicking Alex Tuck? Well, Alex Tuck's going to be a UFA in a couple years, but are you kicking like is he jumping Kulich all of a sudden? Is he jumping Oslin, even though Oslin's probably a center? Like there's just no spot for him, and we need that defensive zone center right now, and he literally is like the perfect fit for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I would have been, even though it did come off, I was pretty fired up, but I would have been so much more fired up. And I think you would have been too, a lot more Sabres if it was like Coolidge that got traded in that deal. Like, at least my
Yeah,
opinion, I'm higher on Coolidge. I think the size,
no,
like, I think the dominance at the AHL already, I think I'm higher on Coolidge. I do want to make that known.
okay, well, I'm just saying, like, I think when you made your video, you were like defending Sabres fans, which I totally get. Like, it's like, what the hell? Like, it's especially when you go second for Malmsteen and then you
So
give up Savoy for a third line
Well,
center.
that's my thing, man. It's not even, here's the thing.
It's like,
I think the trade itself, when you look at it, I don't think it's like the most horrible thing for the reasoning. Like you shore up an absolute need. You bring in
mm,
something that's going to alleviate Cousins' responsibilities. Like I think in general, your center depth got a lot better. I'm not disagreeing with like the perspective on the trade. I'm getting fired up over like the asset management perspective from Kevin
yeah,
Adams. Like the second round pick for Malmsteen proves that. Like if the first trade of this offseason was the McLeod trade, I can kind of be like, you know what? he's getting aggressive at like filling a need. But it was like, for me, it was like the value there. He overcompensated to get that need. Same thing with Malmstein. He felt, okay, let's get like some depth, younger depth on, I mean, Malmstein's his mid-20s at this point, but a guy that's going to fit your need, fourth line, can play center, play wing. You brought in Lafferty for the same thing, but I just feel like you needed to give up a second for that. Like you needed to give up SAVOIE to get McLeod. Like
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But if you look at like Edmonton, like as soon as they traded McLeod, it was like, oh, good heaven, like good grief, let's get this guy out of here. Like, guy doesn't go in the corners, all this stuff. But like for the weeks leading up to the trade, it was like we need to get rid of Evander Kane. Like this offensive core is like stacked, which I totally agree. Their offensive core is stacked, but nobody was talking about moving McLeod. So maybe like Edmonton's in a spot where they're like, we're not moving McLeod, and then they're like, okay, well, we really want him. We're giving up SAVOIE, which that's a whole another
but
topic.
isn't
But if
that
you look
smart
at
asset management on the Oilers side? Making it like, I feel like what you're saying, exactly that. Oilers
it,
perspective made it seem like McLeod was like not going anywhere. So his value, I guess, goes up at that point.
yeah, no, I agree, but um, I don't know. I think like if you look at last offseason, there was like no moves done at all, and even this offseason, like people are talking about. We'll talk about the top six forward later, but people are like, oh, let's get a top six forward and let's shore up this offense. And it's like none of these guys have moved.
Yeah.
Like the only guy that's moved that I could even see like the Sabres wanting is like Mangiapane. Yeah, he went for a second. Whoops. but but you know what I mean? Like these guys aren't moving. Sometimes you have to overpay. Like I don't know what's going on in the NHL these days. Like the NBA just made a 6-team trade and NHL it's like still seems like impossible to get a deal done. So sometimes I guess that's Kevin Adams' thought process is like, I guess we have to overpay here, which I totally get the asset management, but it's like, what do you want to go into the year with Peyton Krebs as your 3C because you didn't want to overpay? Peyton Krebs is a whole nother subject, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, I agree. I also think like, and being someone that kind of covers like the whole league, or at least I try to talk about the whole league. It's like, I always kind of, I don't know, I find some humor out of like seeing both fans like completely disagree on their players' value. Like, for
Yeah.
example, right now with all like the Joel Farabee, we'll talk about that, but those trade rumors, it's like I see Flyers fans want like the sun, the moon, the stars, and like Sabres fans think it's gonna take like Krebs and a mid-round pick to get it done. It's just
Yeah.
like, let's wake up
Mm,
and and realize what's going
yeah.
on here. Because again, yeah, what you just said, like I think the Zucker signing for me, like I look at it in two different ways. One being like, did you really need to sign a guy when you have like Quinn, Paterka, Benson all battling for like those top 9 winger spots already? I mean, Zucker could probably fit somewhere on that third line, potentially, or maybe he goes on the second line to give Greenway the spot. I don't know. I feel like it's a bit crowded there right now with that Zucker signing. I feel like he's not really a true top 6 forward, at least for what he did last year. But at the same time, you
Hmm.
got him just through free agency, and didn't have to give up a second round pick where Mangiapane, that conversation like
Yeah.
you just had.
Oh,
So
totally agree.
I don't know. I see it on both sides. Like you didn't have to give up anything to get Zucker, but at the same time, you paid 5 million and then you gave the second
Yeah.
anyways to Malenstein. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place with the Sabres right now, man.
Yeah. It makes no sense. Like, why? Like, I don't mind the Zucker bringing in Zucker, but I don't. I have the same thought. Like, what do you do with him? Do you put him on the second line and then Benson's now a third liner? Which, I mean, he's 19 years old. I wouldn't mind if he was on the third line. I think he fits better on the
But
second
then that
line.
means
But
Greenway's probably on the fourth line, right? Like,
no, it would be Benson, Cousins, Quinn, and then Zucker, McLeod, and Greenway. Greenway's a touchy subject in the Sabres fan base. Some guys love him.
yeah.
Some guys absolutely hate him, think he's the worst player in the world, which
Hmm.
I'm kind of in the middle. I don't mind him on the third line,
Well,
especially
I guess what
like,
I'm getting at is like, so that can move into this next conversation is like, if the Sabres do acquire, and even this is a scenario where even Krebs goes the other way, you're still potentially moving another forward that's on your roster for that top 6 forward, because if not, like I just said, Zucker or Greenway all of a sudden find themselves
yeah,
like down the depth chart. Specifically, I think Sabres fans would agree. It's probably in that scenario, hypothetically, if you didn't move one of those guys, Greenway ends up on your fourth line with like Lafferty and Malenstein, or Lafferty and Aube Kubel. Which I
yeah,
mean, $3 million guy on the fourth line. So I wonder if Greenway goes the other way in a potential top 6 forward. Like that's another guy I wonder.
yeah. I don't know. I really don't know. Like right now, even if you look at it, we're crowded. Like Krebs is a guy that like Kevin Adams has believed in like hard since the Eichel trade, and he almost has to because he's like not by any means the main piece, but he was seen as like a top prospect when we got him. So he's a big part of the Eichel trade, and we believed in him. We've given him shots. When he first got here, he was like on the power play and stuff, and he was making good passes. And then last couple of years, like even at times when you're like, this guy has to come out of the lineup, they're not. And then you trade away Middlestat, and it's like they put Krebs at the 3C, and you're like, do they think this is the solution here? So they're believing in Krebs, and then but right now, if you look at the lineup, like where is he going to go? Are you going to take out Obey Kubel, who was like one of the best defensive fourth liners or best defensive forwards in the league right now? Are you going to put Krebs in because of him? So right now we're already overloaded. You take a spot where you trade for a top six forward. Well, now like yeah, I 100% probably Greenway has to go. He makes the most sense to go the other way. I don't know how much value he has at that $3 million price tag, but
Yeah.
apparently he's got a set. That was an overpay last year. We gave a second round pick for a guy who probably should have been a cap dump if
And
you
he's
think
yeah, I
about it.
mean, $3 million in the cap is not like easy for a bottom six guy that's not producing. And that's why I was gonna also say, like, if you have a combination of Greenway and he's not scoring, for example, with McLeod, I would say Abe Kubel, Lafferty, like those are guys that are not going to put up a lot of production on the board. Like good defensively for sure, like three of those guys I just listed.
Yeah,
But I think that's maybe the one concern for the Sabres is like, you're probably going to give those young guys the opportunity in the top six, which is fine. But I think that's where Sabres fans really want that top six edition because, as you said, it slides down a guy like Benson, who, I mean, that would be a really good third line if it could be Benson, McLeod, Zucker as your third line. So I think that's where Sabres
yeah,
fans are looking at the perspective. Get a top six forward, have Zucker and Benson as your wingers on the third line, and then either move Greenway or he ends up getting stuck on your fourth line. Like that's at least my perspective. I don't know if you disagree or not with that,
no,
but
no, I agree that'd be sweet, but at the same time, like if you're looking at my perspective on it is I don't believe we need to acquire a top six forward right now. Obviously, if we're
wow.
looking good, and yeah, I know. My opinion on it is if you look at last season, look at our penalty kill. Like our top penalty kill usage was Thompson, Tuck, Cousins, and Greenway. Like Thompson broke his hand blocking a shot on the penalty kill. And this is your first line center, your power play specialist, like not specialist, but your power play weapon. Like these guys are getting injured on the penalty kill blocking shots. Like and they're getting defensive zone usage. I think their numbers are just gonna boost by having Mallinston, Lafferty, McLeod, Greenway on the penalty kill instead of them. Also that fourth line of Mallinston, Lafferty, and Obey Kubel and the third line with McLeod getting all the D zone starts, and
Yeah.
then you put Cousins and Thompson in the offensive zone starts. I think that alone will boost their offense. And all these people saying like, "Oh, we need a top six forward." Well, we like we kind of got one because we're replacing Victor Olofsson, who played most of the year in the top six. He got dropped down at the end of the year and like got healthy scratched at the end of the year. We went into last season with Paterka, Cousins, and Olofsson as our second line. Now we're going in with Quinn instead of Olofsson. That is like such a massive difference. I think Quinn is like one of the most underrated players in the league. He is so good. He came off an ACL injury and like scored like right away. Like there was no hiccup, no nothing. I think he could have a huge year. And I just think the usage of the players, like we were asking Cousins and Thompson to do it all last year and Tuck. We were asking them to do it all last year. And now we're saying we got guys to check. We got guys to fight. We got guys who are going to play in the defensive zone. We got guys on the penalty kill. Go out there and score goals. And I think that is going to like do major, like it's going to make a major difference.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. Give your shout for what you got going on and taking it at the end of the video, guys. I'll definitely get Riley to look at some of the comments. We'll shoot a message on Twitter, things like that. But yeah, Riley, give a little plug.
Yeah,
And
so my Twitter account is Buffalolytics. So if you want to chirp me, come at me on there. I'm happy to defend myself. Most of the time, I find myself leveling with people. But yeah, I'm starting an esports community event brand in in Brantford, Ontario. So we're gonna look to maybe have some NHL events, get like 30 people, 60 people, 100 people, who knows, and start building community esport events and bring people together. So if you're interested in any video game, follow at nextgen_can, CAN, on Instagram and Twitter. And we're looking to get the ball rolling. We're looking to probably get a event going in the next couple months. So yeah, thanks, John.
Hey, of course, man. Thank you for doing that, and thanks for joining. Some Sabres talk. We'll do this every once in a while to kind of catch up. It's definitely cool to kind of, I mean, I doing a lot of Leaf stuff, but I like going across the league. But it's cool to kind of bring on a perspective right from the team and right from the fan base. And I think yeah, Sabres fans will enjoy this chat. So from Riley, myself, John, make sure you guys subscribe, like, comment. Make sure you guys hit up Riley, and we'll talk soon. Peace.